But we also know that there have been infringements on free speech that actually affect not just the British, of course, what the British do in their own country is up to them, but also affect American technology companies.
But in relation to free speech in the UK, I'm very proud of our history there.
In England, they voted for Brexit, and agree or disagree.
When J.D. Vance publicly confronts Keir Starmer, Britain is being told something blunt. The digital crackdown has crossed a line. Once Washington steps in, rules shift fast. This stops being domestic politics and becomes a test of sovereignty, trade leverage, and global credibility today now.
Of the free speech we have in Britain, and Vice President Vance calls him out and about people being arrested for silent prayer. That's also happening here in Britain.
Vance did something very deliberate. He did not insult Britain, he did not shout, he did not posture. He calmly explained that British speech laws now touch American citizens and American companies.
Our own government encouraged private companies to silence people who dared to utter what turned out to be an obvious truth.
And once that happens, this stops being about British culture or British history. It becomes a bilateral issue. It becomes a trade issue. It becomes a sovereignty issue. You cannot regulate foreign speech platforms, threaten them with massive fines, and then pretend this is none of America's business. That is not how power works.
We've had free speech for a very, very long time in the United Kingdom, and it will last for a very, very long time. Well, no, I mean, certainly we wouldn't want to reach across US citizens, and we don't, and that's up.
People miss the scale here. United States technology companies generate over $300 billion a year in global digital services. Britain is one of their biggest regulatory targets. These platforms are not small websites. They are infrastructure. They are where speech happens. When Britain tells them to remove this or pay 10% of your global revenue, that is not moderation. That is leverage. And Vance made it clear that Washington sees it that way. Not culture war, not feelings, money and control.
Is freedom of speech dead in this country?
I'm not across the details of the particular case, but let me give you the principles that I would apply. Firstly, I'm strongly in favour of free speech. We've had free speech in this country for a very, very long time, and we protect it fiercely.
And this is the first time a sitting United States Vice President has openly challenged British speech enforcement on foreign soil. That matters. That is a line that was never crossed before. Allies do not usually do this in public unless something fundamental has broken. Vance was not freelancing. He was signaling. He was laying groundwork. He was making sure no one could later say they were not warned. This was a formal notice delivered politely but firmly.
That Keir Starmer's done, which is particularly unnerving compared to the previous Conservative governments.
Now look at Starmer's response, because this is where things start to unravel. Every time he is asked about free speech, he goes back to history. He talks about tradition. He talks about pride. He talks about how Britain has always valued free expression. But notice what he does not do. He does not deny the laws. He does not deny the arrests. He does not deny the fines. He does not deny the enforcement. He avoids the present and hides behind the past.
And so I say, don't know the details of this case, but free speech, yes. Incitement to violence, no.
That works only if people are not paying attention. But people are paying attention. UK police were already recording more than 12,000 arrests a year related to communications offenses before the new online safety enforcement even kicked in. That is not theory. That is data. That is real people, real cases, real consequences. And Starmer never addresses where the criminal threshold actually sits. What is illegal? What is allowed? Who decides? He never answers that.
He goes down, he says, no, I'm very proud of the free speech we have here in this country. And just to paint a picture of just how dire things are now.
Instead, he reassures. He uses calming language. He says free speech will last. But reassurance is not a safeguard. Saying you believe in free speech does not protect anyone if the law says otherwise. And this is the core credibility problem. When leaders speak about values but govern through mechanisms that contradict those values, trust collapses, not loudly, quietly. And once that happens, outside powers step in.
30 arrests a day, as you just said, so much so that you're all having a conversation about the protocol over being arrested for something you can say. I can only imagine, Winston, something else that's become normal is people are shutting up.
Now we get to the law itself, because this is where critics use the phrase digital gulag, and they do not use it lightly. The Online Safety Act allows fines of up to 10% of global revenue for platforms that fail to comply. Global revenue, not UK revenue. That is a punishment designed to force obedience, not encourage cooperation. It applies directly to American companies like Google, Meta, X, and YouTube. That is why Washington is paying attention.
I mean, that instills fear and censorship and self-censorship where people just stop saying things for fear of being arrested. 11,000.
Ofcom is granted sweeping authority to demand content removal without judicial review. Read that again. No court, no judge, no due process in advance. And the definitions matter here. The law includes categories like harmful but legal speech. That phrase alone should make you pause. Harmful according to whom? Legal according to what? When language is that vague, enforcement becomes discretionary, and discretionary power is where abuse lives.
It's truth. In Washington, there is a new sheriff in town, and under Donald Trump's leadership, we may disagree with your views, but we will fight to defend your right to offer it in the public square.
Legal experts are not warning about this because they are activists. They are warning because this looks like prior restraint. That means stopping speech before it happens or punishing it without proving harm. That is not how free societies traditionally operate. Justice is supposed to respond to violations, not preempt them. When the state decides what may be said in advance, you no longer have free speech. You have permission. So subscribe now, because these are the issues that decide your future, quietly, before you notice.
Yeah, you're absolutely right. It does shut people up. For every one person arrested, 100 people will have their mouths shut because they don't want to lose their jobs. They don't want to lose whatever it might be that is at stake if they...
So when J.D. Vance calls this out, he is not exaggerating. He is connecting dots. He is saying if Britain builds this system and applies it to American platforms and indirectly to American users, then America has a stake. And once America has a stake, the conversation is no longer academic. It becomes strategic. And Starmer's problem is that he is defending a system that cannot be defended on technical grounds, only on moral slogans. That is why this clash feels bigger than a press conference. It is about who controls speech in the digital age. It is about whether governments can outsource censorship to platforms and call it safety. It is about whether history can excuse present enforcement. And it is about whether Britain understands that the world is watching now, not with sympathy, with calculators.
A little over 2 years ago, the British government charged Adam Smith Connor, a 51-year-old physiotherapist and an Army veteran, with the heinous crime of standing 50 meters from an abortion clinic and silently praying for 3 minutes.
This is not noise. This is not theater. This is the opening chapter of something much harder. And the audience needs to understand that once speech becomes a trade issue, the consequences stop being abstract. They become measurable, and they arrive fast. Look at what enforcement now looks like on the ground, because this is where the argument stops being abstract and starts feeling personal. UK police forces are recording 30 or more arrests every single day for online speech-related incidents. Not threats, not violence, speech, posts, comments, messages, sometimes things people already deleted. That number matters because policing is about priorities. Every officer doing that job is not doing another job, and people notice where the focus has gone. At the same time, the government quietly created a new unit, the National Internet Intelligence Investigations Team. That name alone tells you everything. A full-time operation whose sole purpose is to monitor social media. Not criminals hiding online, not traffickers, not gangs. Ordinary platforms where people argue, joke, complain, and vent. This is not reactive policing. This is surveillance. It is a permanent eye watching the public conversation, deciding what crosses an invisible line.
Normal that we're being desensitized to how ridiculous it is. This is one of 30 arrests a day for social media posts, 11,000 a year. And I will also note...
Now place that next to the border reality. Since 2018, illegal small boat crossings have exceeded 350,000. That is not a talking point. That is an accumulated total. Thousands arriving month after month. Hotels full. Processing systems overwhelmed. Local services stretched. And yet the coastline remains porous. People see boats arriving while tweets are being monitored. That contrast is impossible to ignore. Then there is violent crime. In many major cities, clearance rates for serious violent offenses sit below 10%. That means more than 90% of cases go unsolved. Victims wait, families wait, nothing happens. So when people hear that police have time to track posts but not to solve assaults, burglaries, or stabbings, a conclusion forms. Not because of ideology, but because of experience.
My own country, where the prior administration threatened and bullied social media companies to censor so-called misinformation. Misinformation like, for example, the idea that coronavirus had likely leaked from a laboratory in China. Our own government encouraged private companies to silence.
This is where the phrase two-tier enforcement takes hold. It is not invented in think tanks. It is born in living rooms. Citizens feel that rules are strict when applied to them and flexible when applied to others. Whether that perception is fair or not stops mattering once it spreads, and it is spreading fast. Because trust in policing depends on the belief that law is enforced evenly. Once that belief cracks, everything else follows. Now, take that internal picture and connect it to the external pressure building from the United States. America is the UK's largest single-country trading partner. Over £300 billion in annual trade flows between them. That relationship is not sentimental. It is transactional. And Washington has tools, serious tools. When speech laws start threatening American companies, those tools come out of the drawer.